Hello and welcome to another edition of For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. Today my guest is Fran Jackson. She's director of the Frosty and Nature Center and Observatory. It's a fascinating topic. We'll meet her and learn lots when we come back, so stay with us. Welcome back to For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. My guest today, a first-timer on the show. Her name is Fran Jackson, director of Frosty Nature Center and Observatory. And it's a pleasure having you on the show, first of all, so welcome.
Thank you, Sean. Nice to be here.
So tell us what Frosty Nature Center and Observatory is for those that may not know.
It's actually, well, first of all, it's positioned in Ingrate Park in Charlestown, Rhode Island. I don't know if you've ever been there.
I have not been.
Absolutely
I've been to
beautiful
Charlestown,
park.
but not here.
Okay, getting close.
Yeah.
Frosty Drew is actually a person, or was a person, who in the 1970s, now kind of a sad story because he was one of the persons who got polio in the 1950s. So he had a very, very short life. He was very, very young when he died. But he was able at one point to realize that this area that's now this beautiful park was going to be the place for Rhode Island's nuclear power plant. And he was able to start getting a lot of people together. They stopped it. Now we have this absolutely gorgeous area right outside, downtown Charlestown, where in his honor, in about the 1980s, a nature center was started. And then a few years later, one of the astronomy professors at University of Rhode Island, William Penhallow, realized that this was also a beautiful place to put an observatory.
I was going to ask you, it needs to be an appropriate place for an observatory for the purposes that you would use it for, right?
It is. We, in fact, happen to be located in the darkest spot in Rhode Island, and much of the East Coast.
Wow, that's great.
And we're hoping that it stays that way.
Right.
So, in fact, we're also pushing, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The City Dark, but it's a story about a young man who moves to Manhattan and suddenly realizes that instead of having a sky such as his home does in Bangor, Maine, all of a sudden he can see a dozen stars from Midtown Manhattan.
Wow.
And so he talks about the loss of the stars and the loss of the beauty, which is the night. And so we are trying to get as many people involved in remembering how beautiful and lucky we are, especially in Ingrate Park, and hopefully other places that we'd like to have to turn down the lights and to be able to enjoy the beauty of the night.
So when someone comes to the Nature Center or Observatory, what are some things that they can do and see and participate in there?
The Nature Center, well, I'm not directly associated with the Nature Center.
But it's a part of it.
It is, but it's, and they have nature weeks now for kids of all ages, and they do have naturalists there that go out to the public, go to schools, and do programs there. And for us, though, Friday nights is, our time.
Right.
And
you mean the observatory time?
The observatory time, right, which is across the street from the Nature Center. And if, in fact, it's a clear night, we're there. Sometimes, some of the people stay till dawn. The skies are beautiful, that beautiful.
So you have to work around the weather, obviously, in your job, right?
Yes.
Okay. And one thing we were talking about off the air, not only are you the director of the observatory, but you're also, you teach astronomy at Brown, is that right?
No, actually, I work at Brown's Observatory. Brown also has an observatory, which is closed right now for maintenance issues, but we'll be opening as the school year starts. Right. Now, I actually teach up in Framingham State University.
Okay.
I drive a lot.
Oh, yeah.
There isn't really too much call for astronomy, full-time astronomy in Rhode Island. In fact, I also do planetarium shows at URI's facility. A lot of people didn't realize it has one.
So this facility, by the way, obviously we've talked a lot off the air, and this really is a passion for you. You love it, and I love. We were talking. I said I love to watch those shows too. I watch The Universe on the History Channel, and so astronomy in general, but more along the lines of just space in general, especially America's participation in it. There's some frustrations on your part and others in your field about the direction or maybe the lack of direction we're going in.
And also in a lot of the public, because there are surprisingly, one of the joys of astronomy is there are a lot more people who do amateur astronomy than, say, any other science discipline.
Because you just need a telescope in your backyard, basically?
You just need your eyeballs,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
or a set of binoculars.
Yeah.
A lot of people never go beyond binoculars, but just to enjoy the beauty of the sky. But, you know, as we were speaking earlier, you know, I was a person of the Apollo era.
Right.
And when it stopped, pretty much so did a lot of the enthusiasm, a lot of the joy and the potential for going further.
Right. Well, the thing is, people would say, well, we went to the moon all those times. What else is there? Why would we need to go back? Well, maybe you don't need to go back, but how about to the next spot? And the next obvious spot is Mars, right?
Well,
for humans. We've sent a lot of probes there, and we got another one that's on the way soon, right?
Yes,
It'll
Curiosity will be
Curiosity.
landing in early August, yes.
And that's a much larger version of the rover's Spirit and Opportunity.
Oh, absolutely.
This is
It's
the
about
size
twice the size. It's the size of your SUV.
Right.
It's really huge.
So this one isn't going to get caught in the sand or anything like that.
No,
It's going to really...
and in fact, it'll spend most of its time going up.
Oh, yeah?
It's actually going to be, it'll be landing near an area called Gale Crater, G-A-L-E, and its mission will be pretty much to go up the spire of the crater and try to see if there's anything there. There's always hope that there is some kind of living organism there at some time. We know that Mars has changed.
Right. It used to have water.
A lot more water
Yeah.
than a lot of people realize.
Some people
yes.
think that permafrost that they discovered maybe it's frozen underground.
Yes.
Is that a possibility?
Right. Plus, there's some minuscule water in the atmosphere.
Right.
A little bit of that, and one of the I believe it was Opportunity. I always get the two of them mixed up.
Yeah.
In fact, I have a friend who worked down there, and he said they shouldn't have called it Spirit and Opportunity. They should have called it, you know, Separation and Divorce. Because a lot of people got involved in that an awful lot.
Yeah.
And one of them actually landed in a crater that apparently from the surface there, it was filled with water at one point.
Right, you could tell, yeah.
Yes.
And just by looking at, you know, the terrain from above, you can see, you know, tributaries and things of that sort where water apparently ran at one point.
And also they seem to be finding places where water is coming up from below the surface. They notice differences from one year to the next, and some of the changes can only be attributed to water running downhill very, very quickly, because water can't exist as a liquid on the surface.
Right, but the fact that there is water in some form means there's always that hope that there could possibly be, or was at some point, life on Mars, and that's why apparently we keep going back. Even with a lot of failures, it didn't seem to you know, temper anybody's excitement about continuing to send, you know, because there was a lot of things that were lost and blew up or whatever.
Oh, yes.
But they keep going back there because there's not a lot of places that we could go, I guess, with our technology at its current level.
Also, in our solar system, that's
Right.
pretty much it. Our nearest neighbor, Venus,
This is
which
impossible.
absolutely, I mean, this is like Hades personified. You know, however, I don't know. Speaking of Venus, I don't know if you were able to watch the transit of Venus here just about a month ago.
Right, where it was very close up and you could see it.
You could actually
Yeah.
watch it travel across the face of the sun. I know here, unfortunately, it was pretty cloudy. I was fortunate enough to go to Mount Wilson.
Wow.
And saw about 5 hours of it. You know, people wonder, why in the world are you watching a dot?
Yeah.
You know, for 5 hours. You know, but that's about as close as we're going to get to Venus. Mars, though, if we're going anywhere,
That's it.
that's
Right.
it. And a lot of it is because of the potential for having water. So if there's going to be any life on it, hopefully within the next few decades, it'll be ourselves.
And part of it is our current level of technology, you know, getting out to the outer solar system. It just takes so long. I know we've developed, you know, these ion engines and stuff, and, you know, sometimes people get caught up in science fiction and thinking that we can warp drive anywhere, and that just doesn't exist at this point.
I know people are trying, but
Yeah.
it'll be a while
I
before
think
it
they theoretically,
happens.
on paper, physicists, you know, said that warp drive is potentially possible. You just have to find power sources and you know.
I know I'm still trying to have some of my
antimatter.
friends work on teleportation. I
Yeah.
drive so much; it would be nice if I didn't have to.
Right.
But everybody kind of.
Let's bring it back home now
Yes.
to Rhode Island again. You know, the observatory. I think that you know, we talked. I think I've sensed some frustration in you with, I guess, the lack of the public's interest in it in general. Because you and I could sit here and we both seem pretty passionate about it. But you know, you want you want lines out the door, and everybody, you know, you want them to be excited and want to be involved in it.
We do still some nights, if it's really clear, we do have a lot of people come. But you're absolutely right, because of the, you know, basically the budget cuts in NASA. the stopping, of the space shuttle, and which at least a lot of people kind of looked forward to that because they knew that they could do something with it. It's not the thrill of science, the curiosity that I as a kid, and hopefully you also as a child, had. It doesn't seem to be there because there doesn't seem to be a way for people to really look up and say, wow, this is what's going to happen. This is what we do hope to happen at Frosty Drew by having a beautiful sky and having people go up and really observe stars that they can't see probably in their own backyard.
Is there a better time of year to go, or does it matter all year round, just depending on the clearness of the night sky?
It really does. A lot of people like the winter sky because you've got the beautiful constellations. You've got Orion and Taurus the bull and the dogs and all these other relatively easily identified images. But in the summer now we have the Milky Way going straight across our sky, and 3 beautiful stars that kind of surround it. And there's always a lot of deep sky objects, some of which can be very easily found with binoculars. But also just the idea of it, Frosty Drew, in your backyard, especially where I live, up in northern Rhode Island, maybe I can see a couple hundred stars. At Frosty Drew, you can see a couple thousand stars. It's a whole different point of view. Plus, we also kind of like to watch the space station when it goes by.
That's cool.
You know that there are websites that you can find based on where you are when it will pass overhead. But we kind of make it, a moment where we'll actually close the telescope and have people go outside and watch it. And the iridium flares, I don't know if you've seen those spacecraft that are tumbling, so all of a sudden you'll just see a very quick flash of light happen, and sometimes it'll be brighter than any of the planets.
Now the space station, I would imagine, for you probably has the same frustration that the space shuttle program had with, first of all, the lack of any space shuttle now for this country means we have to rely on either private or the Russians or somebody else to get us up there. But also the space station, I would assume that budgets have been cut for that, and maybe some kind of lack of interest on maybe not on NASA's part, but on people in general.
Right, because people see it, they watch it go by, but I don't even think they know what's happening there.
What's going on, what kind of research is happening up there. And
it's very sad because there should be a lot of work being done there, but we never hear about it. We don't even really know. Remember with the shuttle astronauts, you could almost name every single person on board at that time.
And you could name each shuttle too.
Yes.
Endeavour and
right, all of which were named for fantastic, previous voyages. Now it's like, oh yeah, there it is, and they kind of just watch it. Wow, that's fun. Do you think if we wave, they'll see us? And I don't think so because it's 200 miles up. But there's no real connection except the fact that, oh, there it is.
And when the shuttles existed, the media would cover shuttle launches. You'd see on CNN all the time, every launch would be covered, so there would at least be some media. Let's take a break because we've got a lot more to get to, so we will. Is there a website people can go to for Frosty Drew?
Yes, frostydrew.org.
All right, a simple website. We'll take a break and come back. Fran Jackson is the director of Frosty Drew, the Observatory. We will take a short break. I'm Sean Murphy. This is For the Record. Stay with us. Welcome back to For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. My guest today is Fran Jackson, the director of the Frosty Drew Observatory, also a nature center right across the street. And, just like anybody else in this day and age, it's necessary to raise funds to continue the operation of that and other things. So you have one coming up. Let's talk about it a little bit.
Yes, we do. We have one of our 2 major fundraisers, and that is Sea Starts, an artisan. It's basically a whole craft day where people of any kind of crafts can come and have a booth. And just last year was our very first one, and we had people come from all over the state and Massachusetts and Connecticut showing ceramics, jewelry, any kind of clothing, of course, and just any kind of crafts that they are making. And it was a really great time. It really was. People were thrilled. You're outside. It will be Saturday, July 28th, and as we were talking earlier, it's always clear on a Saturday,
That's
so
right.
we should have no problem with it.
And people, when you have an observatory, you can make calls and make sure that the sky is clear.
Oh, we do our darndest.
Yeah.
And in fact, we have a ringer coming in, a professor of astronomy from Harvard coming up, Giovanni Fazio, who will be giving talks on basically the nature of life, the universe, and everything, and also doing programs for kids, which is something that we at Frosty Drew, both in Nature Center and Observatory, do our best to keep up, you know, the love of science for them. And one of the problems we have is the loss of curiosity, and, you know, trying to keep kids doing so. And also by having a program such as Sea Star, this will help us in our funding. We are just a little nonprofit organization. We depend on contributions, and this is really, you know, one of the major ways that we'll be able to keep going for the rest of the year.
The way the economy is these days, do you find it more of a struggle, or do you find people still willing to come and spend their money there? And are you able to get, you know, like things like corporate donations, things of that sort?
Corporations haven't been coming that much, and unfortunately, even though Saturdays are usually clear, Friday nights aren't.
Oh.
So we lose a lot of our contributions on that night, which is why we hope for a day like Sea Star to really help us. We also have in April a 5K walk, which I hope you'll come to next year.
Very nice.
Yeah, do you do 5K walks?
Well, yeah, you know, I do maybe like 5K drives, but you know, maybe we can work our way up to the walk.
Okay, fine. Well, I hope you'll come
Yeah.
to Sea Star at least. Yeah, in fact,
You know, you were talking about, you know, one of the biggest fights you have is the loss of curiosity by kids. Well, what can you do to get that back? What are some ways?
Well, one of the things we do is to try to keep Frosty Drew going as much as possible, to try to show them, especially, you know, in this very computerized technical age, we try, you know, I'm older, so I like the old stuff. We try to show them that science is not a real, doesn't have to be a real technological phantasmagoria. It can be very, very easily done. You know, even for adults, we kind of play a lot. We'll do, you know, make planetary models with Play-Doh, make star clocks utilizing the Big Dipper. You know, by noting the position of the Big Dipper, you can tell exactly what time it is, and there's actually a clock you can make just with a sheet of paper and a, you know, paper hole, you know, one of those Brad's paper connectors. So, you know, just then of course the idea of making a comet out of dry ice and seeing it.
Right, see it kind of trail and.
So, you know, we have to kind of improvise doing things as inexpensively as possible, but also showing people that by doing it like this, you don't need big, you know, fantastic things to get people involved. Just typical around the house materials are enough to keep people's ideas, and, you know, just, you know, to me, when I look at a can of Play-Doh, I see.
You can see a solar system that you can mold.
I see Jupiter, right? You know.
Do you have during the school year? Do you have field trips that come in from time to time?
We do. They do for more so for the Nature Center side.
Okay.
I have been going to schools relatively
Okay.
recently in the past couple of years, and I've also gone to, you know, scout groups. And I'll be going to a lot of libraries this summer.
You know, I was going to ask you like what the day-to-day duties of the director are. So one of them is going to schools and Cub Scout meetings and stuff like that, but what else?
Basically doing everything possible to keep science alive,
Yeah.
you know, having you people invite me here, which is always
Which
wonderful.
is a pleasure for us, yeah.
Thank
get
you,
to learn.
gosh.
So that and, you know, some fundraising that we talked about, that's necessary.
Right,
you
and
know.
also keeping science alive in other ways, such as Halloween parties. And then, of course, as you know, the end of the year is also supposed to be the end of the world.
Yeah.
So we are having an end of the world party.
Oh, that's right. And what
Yes.
happens, so I guess you can just continue the party if the world doesn't in fact end.
In fact, I have a calendar that ends on the 21st,
Oh, yeah?
21st of December.
Right.
But on the 22nd of December, it starts on day one.
Oh.
Look, we made it.
Okay,
Let's
yeah.
start
so
again.
you start over? Yeah,
right.
so it's day
yeah.
one. Wow, that's interesting. That's a good philosophy to have, too.
Absolutely. You know, so we try our best to, you know, not only keep the science there, but to equate it with what's happening. You know, such as Halloween is actually an astronomical date. You know,
Right.
it is the middle, you know, the date of the middle of the season, just as May Day was Groundhog Day. And we just try to kind of remind people how important the sky is. And science in general is in everyday life. A lot of people don't realize that.
And you know, you shouldn't. Some people should know that don't confuse astronomy with astrology, which also looks up at the stars and the planets too. But it's a completely different thing. You know?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
You know, I've very often people, you know, ask me what I do. I say I'm an astronomer, and they say, "Really? That's wonderful. I'm a
You speak the
Pisces."
future?
You know,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
And then I have to tell them, "You're really not a Pisces." And we go through the whole thing, but
When, as an astronomer, which you are, and when people think of space, one of the big buzzwords for people, because it did get a lot of exposure and it did a lot of great work, was Hubble. Are you proud of it? Are you proud of what was accomplished and discovered with it? And talk about that a little bit.
it is one of the best things that happened
Yeah.
to astronomy, public astronomy in general. Now, a lot of people don't realize that in addition to the beautiful images they take, there is a lot of science happening. But one of the major pushes toward the telescope was, quite honestly, to keep as beautiful a set of images coming down, to, quite honestly, keep the public enthralled in what's happening, and hopefully to keep the Hubble up there as much as possible.
Wasn't there a kind of a mess up where it was farsighted or nearsighted when it launched, and they really,
Yes,
and that's like such an egg on their face, so to
It,
speak.
it was very embarrassing.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the company, the unnamed company,
To this day, is it unnamed?
well, it
Yeah.
will be here. Unfortunately, forgot in its proposal to put in quality control, and which in fact I used to do ages ago. And by doing so, the curvature of the mirror wasn't checked. And even though it was basically a very, very tiny change in the curvature, it was enough to create only a 20% focusing when it first took place. So any of the early images had to be relatively almost totally computer generated.
Yeah.
Now, though, after the first mission, that changed to about an 80% focusing, which is why after that, after the mid-1980s, the images came even more beautiful.
Why is it necessary for the lifespan of the telescope to end? You know, I guess you would have to just keep sending up for maintenance purposes. And if technology advances, newer and more powerful things are already up there, right? Or on the way soon.
But you figure this is a tried and true
Yeah.
way of getting people involved, of showing people how beautiful the sky is. Granted, right now there are no more repair missions set up,
Right.
and pretty much we're saying that its life will end in about 4 years now. But you know, there's always the hope that somebody will say, well, wait a minute.
Right.
You know, this has been very good. Maybe somehow, of course, we don't have a space shuttle
Yeah.
to go up there, but maybe there's some way that we can once again continue to keep it going.
Now, I know you don't agree with the fact that there is no shuttle program or a replacement anyway, so we're grounded now and have to rely on others. But do you feel that it was time to retire that program?
From what I understand, every shuttle was made to have a running life of over 100 missions. All of them did about 30 or 40.
That's it? Really?
That's it.
Wow.
There's a lot more, you know,
Yeah.
mission inside each one of those
Was
shuttles.
the technology antiquated, though, at some point? Or
It is in some ways,
Yeah.
but unfortunately what we have is what we have.
Yeah.
It's just like
it's
going to the
expensive,
moon. Right
yeah.
now, we literally cannot go to the moon right now. Either way, we'd have to start, you know, either at ground zero using
Yeah.
21st century technology, or get together all of the engineers who got us there in the 1960s, that at least we know that worked, but we'd have to use 60s technology
do we
to
need,
do it.
is it necessary to have a competitor like we had with the Soviets back in the space race, day?
It seems to be one of the main things that keeps us going,
Yeah,
doesn't it, though?
yeah.
It's very
But
sad.
for you, it's different. You're all about discovery, and does every astronomer hope that is the holy grail to discover life elsewhere? Is that what it is?
It's just to discover.
Yeah,
Regardless
general.
of what it is. Yeah, just to look up, see what's up there, and to hope there's more. More life? Sure, that's a possibility, but more of everything.
The universe is so huge. You know, you have to wonder, how did it only how is it possible that it only happened on one planet in one solar system in the entire galaxy and universe?
That does, to me,
Yeah.
seem more improbable
Right.
than there's got to be something else
It's just
out there.
unfortunate that will we have the technology someday to leave our own solar system? And it seems kind of daunting now because of the size the dimensions that you have to deal with.
Oh, absolutely.
And our short lifespans.
Absolutely. We would have to go to Star Trek and get
Yeah.
warp speed to
Exactly.
get us away from here.
Just our nearest star would take forever, you know.
It
whatever.
is, yeah, it's basically 4 light years away, which is about 25 trillion miles. We can't go there by bus.
Right. Okay, but even in an observatory, which is what you do in astronomy, you can learn lots.
Oh, absolutely. If only for the fact of seeing what you can't see with just your eyes, being able to understand how much more is out there. And to me, that's the start of wonderment.
Yeah. Well, you know, listen, if you have the opportunity in Rhode Island, or really from anywhere, Frosty drew the Nature Center and the Observatory, and you're the director of that, and I very much appreciate you coming on the show today.
Thank you very much.
One more time on the website.
FrostyDrew.org.
All right. Fran Jackson, director of the Frosty Drew Observatory. Thanks again for being on.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us for another edition of For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. We will see you next time. Take care.